Imagine this. You're a merchant in Cairo. The year is 1324. Business is good. Gold is valuable. Life is stable. Then one morning, a king arrives from the south. Not just any king. He brings with him 60,000 people, 12,000 servants, each dressed in silk and brocade, 80 camels, each carrying 300 pounds of pure gold dust. And this king, he walks through your city and just starts giving it away, to the poor, to strangers, to mosques, to anyone who looks his way, for weeks. The result? Gold, the most precious metal on earth, became almost worthless in Egypt. Prices collapsed, merchants went bankrupt, an entire economy was shattered by one man's generosity. His name was Mansa Musa, and history forgot him almost completely. To understand Mansa Musa, you first need to understand where he came from, West Africa, 1226 AD. While Europe was still in the middle of its so-called Dark Ages, fighting plagues, building castles, barely surviving, something extraordinary was rising in the heart of Africa. A warrior prince named Sundiata Keita defeated the powerful Soso ruler Sumanguru Kante in battle, and from that victory, he built what would become one of the greatest empires the world has ever seen, the Mali Empire. At its peak, Mali was the largest empire in West Africa, stretching from the Atlantic coast all the way east across the Sahara, nearly 2 million square kilometers of land, more territory than modern-day Western Europe. But land alone doesn't make an empire great. What made Mali extraordinary was what lay beneath it: gold. West Africa sat on top of some of the richest gold deposits on the planet, and Mali controlled nearly half of the entire world's gold supply at the time. Add to that the salt trade. Salt, in the medieval world, was almost as valuable as gold itself, and Mali sat at the crossroads of the most profitable trade routes on Earth. Caravans from North Africa crossed the Sahara Desert to reach Mali's markets. Arab merchants, Berber traders, scholars from Egypt and the Middle East, all roads led to Mali. Cities like Timbuktu, Gao, and Jenne became legends, places of wealth, knowledge, and power that the outside world could barely imagine. And into this empire, in the year 1312, stepped a man who would make it all even greater. His full name was Musa Keita, but history remembers him as Mansa Musa. Mansa meaning King of Kings. He came to the throne somewhat unexpectedly. The previous ruler had sailed west into the Atlantic Ocean, reportedly to find the edge of the world, and never returned. Musa was appointed regent, then king. And from his very first days on the throne, it was clear he was different. He was, by all accounts, extraordinarily intelligent. He divided the empire into provinces, each with its own governor. He established trade agreements. He built roads. He modernized administration in ways that were centuries ahead of his European counterparts. But his greatest gift? He understood something profound. Wealth without knowledge is just treasure. Under Mansa Musa, Timbuktu transformed from a trading post into a global center of learning. Scholars came from Egypt, from Andalusia in Spain, from Baghdad in Persia. The Sankor Mosque was rebuilt and expanded into a full university, one of the first in the world, attracting 25,000 students at its height. Think about that. While Oxford University was still in its infancy, Timbuktu had a university that could rival anything in the world. Manuscripts were written, copied, and studied. Mathematics, astronomy, law, medicine, all flourishing in the heart of Africa centuries before Europe's Renaissance. And Mansa Musa funded all of it. He reportedly had an estimated net worth, in today's dollars, of around $400 billion, numbers that are almost incomprehensible. But it was one single journey that would make him truly legendary. In 1324, Mansa Musa decided to make the Hajj, the Islamic pilgrimage to Mecca. Now, for a devout Muslim, the Hajj is a sacred obligation, a spiritual journey. But for Mansa Musa, it became something else entirely, a declaration to the entire world of just how powerful Mali was. He assembled a caravan unlike any the world had ever seen. 60,000 people traveled with him, his royal court, his generals, scholars, poets, merchants, 12,000 personal servants, each wearing silk and carrying gold staffs, 80 camels, each loaded with 300 pounds of gold dust, horses, tents, food enough for an army. The procession stretched so far across the desert that people at the front couldn't see the end. As they moved through the Sahara, through cities, across borders, Mansa Musa gave. He gave to the poor, he gave to mosques, he gave to rulers along the way. He handed out gold so freely that cities like Cairo were economically disrupted for over a decade afterward.
Gold inflation hit Egypt so hard that the prices of goods didn't recover for 12 years. One man, through sheer generosity, accidentally broke an economy. When he arrived in Mecca and Medina, word had already spread. The richest man alive had come to pray. He brought back architects, he brought back scholars, he brought back ideas. One man he recruited was Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, a poet and architect from Andalusia in Spain. Al-Sahili would go on to design some of the most iconic buildings in West African history, including the famous Jingareber Mosque in Timbuktu, which still stands today, 700 years later. After his return, Mansa Musa was placed on the 1375 Catalan Atlas, one of the most important maps of the medieval world. Drawn by a Spanish cartographer, it showed Mansa Musa seated on his throne, holding a ball of gold, his crown gleaming. An African king depicted as the most powerful figure in the known world. For European explorers, this image sparked obsession. Where was this legendary city of gold? What was this empire that made Rome look modest? The search for Timbuktu would drive exploration for centuries. But even the greatest empires have weaknesses. Mansa Musa died in 1337. He was succeeded by his son, Mansa Magan, who by most historical accounts was wholly unprepared for what his father had built. Without strong leadership, the cracks began to show. Internal rivalries broke out. Governors began asserting independence. Palace coups became routine. In less than a generation, the careful administrative system Mansa Musa had spent his reign building began to unravel. And then came the external threats. In the 1430s, Tuareg Berber forces swept in from the north and captured Timbuktu, cutting Mali off from its greatest city and center of learning. The Songhai Empire, once a vassal state of Mali, rose under the brilliant and ruthless general Sunni Ali. They captured Gao, then more cities. The trade routes that had made Mali the wealthiest empire on earth were now controlled by someone else. And in the background, something even more seismic was shifting. European ships, inspired by those maps showing Mansa Musa's golden empire, had begun sailing south along the African coast, searching for a direct route to West Africa's gold. Portugal's explorers were among the first. They weren't just exploring, they were rerouting trade. The trans-Saharan routes that Mali depended on began to lose importance as ocean trade took over. By 1610, the Mali Empire formally ceased to exist. 4 centuries of history, one of the wealthiest, most sophisticated civilizations ever built by human hands. Gone. So why don't we talk about Mali more? Why is Mansa Musa not a household name like Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great? Part of it is geography. European historians wrote European history, and for centuries, African civilizations were deliberately left out of the story. But the legacy is undeniable. The manuscripts of Timbuktu, over 700,000 ancient texts, were hidden by locals for centuries to protect them from invaders. Many still survive today, quietly sitting in libraries and private collections, waiting to tell their stories. The architectural techniques pioneered under Mansa Musa shaped West African building traditions that continue to this day. The University of Sankor's intellectual traditions seeded Islamic scholarship across an entire continent. And the wealth of Mali, the gold, the trade, the sheer power, set in motion the European age of exploration, which in turn reshaped the entire modern world. Mansa Musa did not just rule an empire, he fed an economy, he built a university, he funded a civilization. And then, slowly, history forgot him. Until now. If this video opened your eyes to a piece of history that should have been taught in school, hit like and subscribe. Every week we uncover the empires, the rulers, and the civilizations that history buried. Next time, the empire that controlled the Silk Road, made China tremble, and then vanished in a single generation. Don't miss it.